Good morning, CO300. I hope you all are doing well. Today I come to you from the comfort of my own home. This is where I'm working from and teaching from, in my home office, in my Harry Potter t-shirt with my Princess Bride cup. So I hope that you all are finding some comfort and are doing well. This week we are focusing on week 10. So feel free to follow along in our course PowerPoint. I will draw your attention to just a few things as we start. My CO150 class asked for these kinds of notes, so I will be downloading the PowerPoint version as opposed to the PDF as I have traditionally done. So you do have a few extra notes there if you're looking to follow along. I have changed up our slides just a little bit so that we will begin on this screen the week 10 video update and our objectives. This will kind of let you know what our main focus is for the week, going back to the course syllabus, rather than having some of the due dates like we have previously on this first slide of the day. One other thing that I'm doing new, with each of these tasks, I'm going to explain exactly what I want you to get out of each task. For the genre analysis that you submitted for Sunday, these are kind of my goals for you. First, figuring out how to communicate effectively with your audience. As you review all of these different genres, all of these different publications and sources, I hope that you're taking note of what these strategies are doing and looking at what you can do to be more effective with your audience. Hopefully, you're kind of taking note in building your website in your own mind and using some of these features as you go. With each new assignment, or most of them at least, I will kind of outline what I want you to get out of it, why we're doing these assignments. All right. One of your readings today is about Toolman. This is basically an argumentation structure. This will show you how to put together your work rhetorically. Typically, in a Toolman argument, the claim or the thesis comes at the end of the introduction, and each body paragraph has a specific structure as well. Your subclaim goes back to your main claim, kind of your supporting reason or point. You include evidence and support. That's what a lot of P2 focused on. The warrant includes the explanation. The warrant is really where you can kind of make connections to your audience. This is really the most important part of each paragraph or of each section. That's because it's where you provide your analysis and show your audience, your readers, what you want from them. And then as you go through, you can switch back between support and warrant as many times as you need in order to support that subclaim. You have as many body paragraphs as you need, and ultimately finish with a conclusion. We have this graphical representation of the Toolman structure. This can show you how to put together some of your ideas in paragraph form, including some of the language that you might use to transition. For example, you might have support in the form of a statistic or something like that from your P2. In order to help with that, you also need a warrant showing why this matters to your audience, kind of starting to build that connection. And you might need backing for that warrant as well. Backing is going to go in and help support your warrant. It's evidence to support the reasoning of why it's so important. Of course, your argument might be a little bit more complicated and you might need an additional part to look at a counter-argument. Qualifiers we've talked a little bit about in terms of hedging language with the editorials you read at the very beginning. We still want to avoid always, never, everyone, no one kind of language. Qualifiers like some, many, often can help with that. This also gives you a place to introduce the rebuttal. If you need to acknowledge a counter-argument, it can be really effective to head your audience off before they get the chance to disagree with you. So you might find it necessary to include the counter-argument in order to address it clearly. With this, there's lots of ways that we could organize your paragraphs. For instance, in this second example, it begins with the qualifier and rebuttal, then combats it with the warrant and backing, and then offers support in the form of evidence. It's up to you really how you choose to put your work together. Again, there are a couple different models. These are all from the chapter, these different diagrams, and I've got a few notes for you here in order to help you put some of these ideas together. So I'll give you just a few moments to look through your work to figure out how you might put this together in your P3. If you haven't already, brainstorm some of the different content pages that you might like to include on your website. These will most likely be your subclaims. With the notes from your Toolman reading, start adding some of these subclaims and pages, different support that you think you might have, and figure out how all of these are connected back to the thesis. So, I'll give you a few minutes. Just kidding, take your own time. I'll wait. Okay. So, if you're ready for Rogerian, feel free to continue along, otherwise hit pause. In Rogerian argument, a lot of this goes back to problem solution. If you think you have a lot of opposition, if you feel the need to create common ground first before introducing your contentious or maybe unpopular beliefs, you might need a Rogerian type of approach. Here, this allows you to kind of to show your readers that you do understand them, that you do appreciate where they're coming from, and showing kind of how you are walking both sides of this line, how you understand the opposition or counterargument, and why you still believe what you do. This table kind of outlines the different approach to between Rogerian and Toolman. With this, in this chart, you have the traditional example on the left, followed by the Rogerian on the right. This is from page 225 of your Essentials of Argument, and it kind of breaks down how these two parallel each other and how they differ. Essentially, your structure in a Rogerian argument would be first to state the problem. This may be where you find common ground or where everybody agrees that it is a problem, and then looking into the opposition second when you summarize the opposition's argument. Why they either disagree with maybe disagree with the problem, or why you have very different approaches on how to solve the problem. It's important when you address opposition to acknowledge how you respect and understand the opposition and kind of validate that perspective. Once you have your audience's trust by presenting their position and why you understand it, then you can summarize your position and move into showing why your position is going to be more valid or more beneficial for your audience than their own. Again, these can go back and forth. You might have a lot of opposition and then a lot of your position to kind of counter each other. It might be two different sections or briefly acknowledging the opposition before introducing several of your own points. Once you've done that, traditionally you'll conclude with a conclusion. I'll give you a few moments to start thinking about your audience and how opposed they may be. Figuring out why and how they'll disagree with you could be really helpful in this argument. If you go back to your readings from last week on audience and the American value system, this should be able to help you identifying how and why you may disagree. With that, take a moment and look through your audience's opposition. Okay. Again, kind of coming back to those same content pages, again, this will be some more brainstorming. When you look at the Rogerian argument, identifying which of these ideas from your content pages, from your subclaims that your audience is resistant to, it might be necessary to address that opposition first. So, again, think about those subclaims that you've developed already. Which ones will have opposition? Which ones will you need to address in order to get your audience to listen to you first? Again, take a couple minutes if you need. Okay. Ultimately, I want you to be able to use these readings from Toolman and Rogers from the EOA in order to make an informed choice about your argument structure. While your paper won't follow a traditional format in these long developed body paragraphs, we'll talk more about genre conventions next week, you should still be able to identify how and when you'll identify the opposition, how and why you'll be able to present your points with support, and why it's important to your audience. So, with this, keep this in mind as you begin drafting your outline. I'm going to go back through the assignment requirements just so you know what you'll be outlining for this week's homework. I highlighted in yellow things that have changed from the original assignment sheet. Basically, your home page and about page have lower word counts, and instead of 3 content pages or different topics to discuss, I'm only requiring 2. The word count for each of these has lowered as well. And then the letter of recommendation explaining your rhetorical choices. This is a separate document. That will be 2 pages instead of 2 to 3. So again, cutting down on some of the workload, since I understand that this is going to be a much bigger endeavor than we originally planned. With that, I hope that this will help you outline. With this, I have several different goals. First, like I said, I want you to be intentional in this process and draft with meaning. So having an outline first can help you figure out how and where you want to go with your argument, as well as support with sources, again, intentionally. With the websites and with everybody turning online in this kind of crazy time right now, this should also help you save and make sure that you don't lose anything to building a website because you didn't save, because it times out, because it kicks you off. So we will be using this outline kind of as a drafting space. With that, I hope that you'll be able to draft in this space in order to help avoid basically procrastinating by choosing the right font and right colors. If you have drafting time set aside, I hope that that's devoted to actually drafting instead of playing with the website. That said, it could be helpful to play with those websites. These different websites are what I've linked for you on the assignment sheet, and I've presented them here. All of them should be the most user-friendly of the different website builders, although if you're familiar with another format, feel free to use that instead. There's a lot, so you might already be familiar with something other than Weebly, Wix, or WordPress. All right. This leads us to the video question. This is what you'll address in your Week 10 discussion post. In your discussion post, please tell me what kind of argument structure you have in mind. Explain why that model will work better for your argument, based on the counter-argument, based on your audience. Be sure to include some of that important rhetorical vocabulary to demonstrate your understanding of the readings and organizational structures. If you're looking for strong examples, I have these 3 outlined for you. These were from last fall, so feel free to review these when you like. One last note on citations. As you're starting to build your website, as you're kind of getting this in mind, for images, I will ask that you stick to Pixabay or Flickr. These are open source images, so that you can download anything that you might need on the website without going out and taking your own photos. In your Works Cited page, you'll make a quick note to say that all images are courtesy of Pixabay or Flickr, so that you do give credit to these sites. All right, and that takes us to our homework. Your discussion post, first part, is due on Tuesday. I did my best to get this recording out to you as soon as possible so that you might begin, and I'll do my best for week 11 as well. I will be looking into those due dates and figuring out what I can switch around. Discussion post part 2, that's due Thursday. This is just a response to 2 classmates based on the first prompts. In your Sunday assignments, again, reading Toolman and Rogers and submitting a bulleted outline with all of the required sections from your website. That's the home page, what's included there, the about page, what you plan to include with that, and content pages as well. Please also, again, include the survey. I will be looking at those responses, again, to make some adjustments to get these things tweaked in time for week 11. Thanks, and hope you have a lovely week. Stay safe out there, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon.